Welcome to the first episode of It's All Money. Your hosts are right here in front of you, or maybe you're listening to us. Daren Blonsky, CFP, and me, Dano, with Dano Weir, with no letters or licenses after his name. What is this show? Who are these people? I believe, Daren, that every podcast needs an episode 0, which is a chance for a listener, a viewer, to get to know, what am I getting in for? Who are these people? Is this my guy? Is this my gal? Do I trust them? Do I like them? So that's what this is. This is episode 0 of It's All Money. So let's set the scene, Daren. Where are we right now for someone who's listening or watching?
Well, that's a very philosophical question where we are right now, Dan. We are sitting in Sonoma, California. It is a perfect time of year here in Sonoma. Lots of tourists out and about right near our office here in downtown. We are sitting in our conference room.
Our conference room of what company?
Of Sonoma Wealth Advisors.
That's right.
That's right. So we're sitting in the Sonoma Wealth Advisors conference room, the same one where we sit with clients day in, day out.
Daren and I have talked about doing a podcast for a long time. And yes, that's right. It's another podcast from a financial advisor. We got together and we said, you know what the world needs is one more podcast from a financial advisor.
But see, Dan, we have you here. And
That's
you're
right.
a non-financial advisor.
Correct.
So it's not exactly just another podcast from a financial advisor because you're with us.
If we have someone who's totally unqualified, that's going to change the game.
Change the game. Absolutely.
So,
well, at least you have the radio voice.
That's right, and we'll get into that. Daren and I, just in our conversations about money in this job at Sonoma Wealth Advisors, have talked about doing a podcast. This would be good as a podcast. And my hesitation always with doing a podcast is, well, what is different about your podcast than all of the other podcasts out there? And there's a lot. So when I thought about, hey, if we're really going to do a money podcast, how can it be different? So I surveyed and did a look at the landscape and what's out there. And really, money podcasts fall into about 4 categories. Podcasts about the market, very natural for a financial advisor to talk about, and getting way into the weeds of crypto and securities and all kinds of details. There are podcasts, money podcasts about a wealth system. So maybe this is how you pay off your debt and then start investing, right? And join my program, and I'm trying to sell my courses, right? That's a type of podcast. There are money saving tips podcasts. This is how you save on your budget. And then there are interviews with people money podcasts, where people sit down with other successful business people. And really the money podcast world fall into those 4 categories. So I said, wait a minute. What if we took those and made them all in one?
That's brilliant, Dano. Brilliant.
And that's what It's All Money is, because ultimately at the end of the day, all of those things, whether it's the market, whether it's your budget, whether it's a wealth system, or whether it's tips from someone who's successful, all those end up hitting your checking account as a consumer. Macro and microeconomics end up affecting you. So this show is about how your life intersects with money.
Well, that's I want to create a definition for what money is. I think that's important, right? Because money is just an instrument, right? We don't want money to become a lowercase god unto itself, a deity unto itself. And money is just a way we transfer energy, right? So we work and we earn money, or perhaps we have a business, we have passive income, but it generates money, and then we're able to do things with that money. And so we're very passionate about life in creating moments, right? Because I contend that we live life in moments, and those moments are what create memories, which creates a sense of fulfillment and happiness in life. And so if we create those moments that offer that feeling of fulfillment through using money as a tool, then we can live a more fulfilling, happy life. And really everything we're going to talk about, it hits your bank account, it impacts you, but let's not lose the forest from the trees, in that money is really just energy, and it's about moving energy in the direction we want to create memories we want.
That sounds like the viewpoint of someone who's a psychology major.
It does, actually.
Give me some of your stats. So for people, we've mentioned Sonoma Wealth Advisors in our names. Who is Daren Blonsky? What's on the back of your baseball card?
So the back of my baseball card, I'd say, first off, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a family member. In my spare time, I'm an outdoors person. I love the outdoors, fishing, hiking, even do some gold painting on the side, Dano. I don't know if you knew that.
The wealth advisor who literally pans for gold.
It is so amazing because it's the one time when I go out in the middle of nowhere and it takes almost zero brain capacity to just sit there and listen to the stream. And there's something about finding something, but you're still in pursuit of something. So there's a kind of a meditative process to it that I enjoy, the physicality of it.
That's a future episode right there.
There is. And I love the markets. So I'm in this business because I fell in love with the markets at a young age.
And what's your position in the business? What do you
So I'm a co-founder and owner of Sonoma Wealth Advisors, or Fermata Advisors, which is our parent SEC registered entity. And then we've got a bunch of different DBAs. We own a tax firm. We have a 401k retirement business, and then a private wealth business as well.
And that's the office that we're sitting in now, Sonoma Wealth
We're
Advisors.
in the private wealth side of the business at the moment. Yes, right. And so I got into the business because I love the markets. The markets are infinitely fascinating. It's an intricate puzzle to understand. I never feel like I fully understand it, and I'm constantly on the edge of trying to relearn. And I love that learning process that the markets offer me. And I love translating that learning into something that people can understand and apply in their day-to-day lives. So that's kind of the crux and the essence of the episode, is like, how do we apply these kind of obtuse and difficult to comprehend topics and make it meaningful in our day-to-day life.
But you are a psychology major. That's what you went to school for, right?
Yeah. Well, so I did part managerial econ at UC Davis, and then I actually really fell in love with sociology and psychology and found it really fascinating how the human brain works and studying that. And then went off and did a lot of leadership development and team development for many years. And then when I had a family, that's a big travel business, decided to switch gears and say, well, what else do I do with my life where I'm not traveling all the time? And loved trading the markets, loved interacting with the markets. I'm like, oh, this financial advising thing looks kind of interesting. And so I went into that, started with a large broker, realized working with that broker that it wasn't the chassis I wanted to serve my clients on, because I felt like I was inhibited from serving them in their best interest. A lot of the regulations have now since changed, so that's changing, but for good. And but so I became an independent financial advisor, an RA, registered investment advisor, and allowing me to serve the clients in independent capacity.
And I'm the marketing director with no qualifications.
I don't think that's true. I think, Dan, we re-met each other, right? Because we met and we knew each other sort of in high school. Mm-hmm. And you came in from the Dave Ramsey program to me to talk with me, and were a client for a while. And then over time, this worked out, and you stepped into the marketing realm with us. And so I think you have a lot of qualifications in a sense. Dan's a guy who really thinks about this stuff from a personal wealth standpoint and has been thoughtful about it in his life and has been a self-teacher of himself, right? He's taught himself how to do this stuff and sought out people to support him. Your background, without delving into too much, doesn't necessarily, I wouldn't have queued you up to be a guy who got all those teachings at a young age on here's what you need to do financially. You had to go pursue that stuff and build that capacity in yourself.
So a little bit about myself. My name is Dan. My nickname is Dano because I was a radio personality for 15 years in Santa Rosa. And so that was the radio name, Dano, but that was actually my nickname from high school. So the high school nickname worked out as the professional name. So Dano Weir.
But they called you Dano Wano, right? Or was that just something we made up?
So my name on Facebook is, I didn't want to use my real last name on Facebook for a while, so I was like Dano instead of...
Because you were worried about like the stalkers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's some interesting people out on the internet. But my real last name is Weir, so then I was Wano for a while was my internet last name. So radio personality, event host... I've taken Color 9 many times and given away those concert tickets. I'm also a father. I'm married. I live in Petaluma. And let's see where else. So San Francisco State grad. and
But didn't you spend some time at Cal Poly too, and then finished up at San Francisco State?
I did. So when I left high school, so we both went to the same high school, Casa Grande High School. When I left high school, you can't just go off and run and join the circus. So you've got to have a real job when you get out of high school. You got to have a real major. So I was a chemistry major at Cal Poly.
Wow, lucky
and Cal Poly's a very fun place, and just didn't end up having.
So
a
you were
passion.
focused on chemistry, not the chemical chemistry that we would apply in the classroom. Is that what you're saying?
No comment. I'm not even going there. It was just beer. So I just didn't have the passion for chemistry, and I kind of always knew I wanted to do something like this where I could communicate with people. So we can get into Dave Ramsey, and we can get into how I ended up here too a little bit later when we get into my life and money, because for this episode 0, I've got we wanted to break down 3 moments from each of our lives that kind of talks about our life and money, and I don't think people really think about things like this. Money just seems kind of like this inherited, passed on thing, and you just sort of have it or you don't. I wouldn't say that many people sit around and think about their life in money, and that's almost the crux of this show is how money impacts your life. So, Daren, we've broken it out here. Let's get into 3 points, three moments for you that kind of symbolize your life in money.
Yeah, the first one I guess I'll back into. So my stepdad growing up owned a flooring company. So I was just telling one of our employees this morning, because we just got new floors in the office over the weekend here, and what I learned in that job was that I needed an education, because I didn't want to pull floors my whole life, because I learned that if you own a cat, it's peeing on your carpet. And if you work in pulling out floors, you get to pull out rug that is peed on by cats. So I decided there and then that would not
Please
be my...
break that out into an Instagram reel. That's what I want. We're going to send it to all the clients.
I just offended every cat lady there is out there. But the truth is they do pee on your carpet, and very consistently so, even when you don't believe they are peeing on your carpet. So that's one thing you learn as a flooring person. And so I worked all summer long, and the girl I had a crush on that I wanted to go on a date with had rules in her family around going on dates until she was 16. So at 16, I had pulled out enough carpet to save up at the time, which was a fair amount of money, and is about $250, which now doesn't seem like much with inflation, but that's what I saved up. And so I took her.
And what year is this? This is 1998, 95.
I think 97, 96, somewhere in there.
$50. That's significant.
Some money, right? So I was like, I'm going to take her out to this really nice dinner. It was this really nice restaurant called Skates on the Bay in Berkeley area. And we drove there, and it was really exciting, blah, blah, blah. We got all dressed up, took her to the restaurant, sat down at the waiting to be seated at the table that I had reserved.
Hold on a second, because on the screen behind us, we've got a photo of Daren from said time. Right there.
It is. That was probably about said time.
This is the guy in high school.
Did you get Ryan's approval to show his face on there?
I figured that Ryan would be okay with me showing it.
Well, yeah. Sam's joining the other side now.
Yeah, so I figured he'd be okay. Dude, that was the Three Amigos right there in high school.
That
so
was our German club.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 4 years of German where I learned one thing. It was more a fun club. I even think the guy all the way to the left, this guy named Nick Santero, I think is all the way to the left. I don't even think he was in German class, but he was in the German club because that was the fun club.
That's fun.
Yeah. So
if you're looking for a visual of Daren, he's standing about 6 something. He's a wrestler. Like, he's in shape. This is Daren Blonsky. Competed at state wrestling tournament.
Yep.
He's fit.
Yep. That was it. Anyway, so I took this gal out to a restaurant, and we went to sit down, and this guy came up to me and said, "Hey, can you jump my car because my car's broken down or something?" Yeah, no problem. Hey, let's go out and I'll jump it real quick. No big deal, right? And we got out the car, and it was my dad's new car. He let me drive for the day.
What kind of car?
It was a Toyota 4Runner. It was not that exciting now, but for me and where I came from, it was very exciting.
It's a cool car, I think.
So, this gentleman said, "Will you jump me?" I said, "Sure." Hey, I'll be right back to my date, which I should never have done at that point, but I did because I was just totally naive, and went out there. He's like, "Hey, man, I don't want you to jump with your new car because my car's older. Can you just give me a ride over the freeway to another guy and he'll come back and jump me? And I did that stupidly, naively. And then he came back out and said, hey, I'll just buy the part real quick. Do you have some money I can just borrow real quick? 16-year-old, just like, duh, yeah, sure, here's some money, go buy, totally naive.
And your girlfriend's sitting in the restaurant.
She's at the restaurant.
Still.
I'm over, if you know Skates by the Bay, and there's a seafood restaurant. I think it might have closed down now. It's right across the freeway. I'm right there. Totally just, he was a classic con artist, just totally envelops your mind. So you're not even thinking rationally and just keep saying yes, yes, yes. Anyway, I got totally messed over, gave him the money. Of course, I never saw the guy again. Well, actually did see the guy again, but we'll save that story for another episode. And I had to drive back to the restaurant with my tail between my legs and tell my date, like, hey, I don't have any money. The guy just took all the money for lunch or for dinner. And
wow.
I mean, it was just like this moment of like, oh my gosh, I can't be naive about this, you know? And sat there, the waitress came up and said, ma'am, I'm really sorry, but this gentleman took my money. I don't have any money to pay for dinner. We're going to need to excuse ourselves, or I'll need to clean dishes. You have
no credit card. You have
nothing.
no.
This time there's no credit card.
You
it's
had
just
cash in your pocket, and now you have no cash.
Zero.
Thankfully, you have gas in the car, because otherwise you would have no gas.
Right, that
either.
was even a concern, because at that point it was like, well, you just put enough gas in the car, right?
Whoa.
So I was like, I can do some dishes and do whatever. We can't pay for dinner. And she's like, okay. Anyway, long story short, they were super cool. The manager paid for our dinner. They asked the police to come and file a police report and all this, because this guy literally poached me inside the restaurant, right? So, of course, as a restaurant and a good business owner, you're going to make it right. Anyway, that was really gracious. And the cop at that time sat me down and said, you know, Daren, you just need to understand. It turned out this cop was from Petaluma, too. He was just on duty in Berkeley. He's like, you just need to understand that not everybody's good in this world. Not everyone's going to. There will be people that take advantage of you. You need to be careful with money. And so that was kind of one of those moments in my life where it just was like, oh, I got to think through this stuff. I got to really understand how this all works. And for whatever reason, that enlivened my brain to pay attention to these things.
And you were 16, 17?
16. Yeah.
16, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, anyway, so that was my first, at least a memory that really shocked me into not being so naive about life and money and things.
What about first job?
First job was actually cutting my mom's flowers and selling them. So I don't know why. I don't know what provoked me to do it, but I wanted to make money. So I would literally stand out on the street. I would cut my mom's flowers, and they probably weren't the flowers. I look back at them because I actually still grow in my mom's garden in Petaluma, and they're not super nice flowers. I'm like, wow, I was really selling those things. And I would sell them, and I would just sit in the corner, and guys coming home from work would buy them for their wives, and I'd just keep selling flowers. And I did that to earn money. And
you're 8, you're 5, you're 7,
something like that, man. Like just
what street? Where
on Edith Street,
Edith
Petaluma.
Street,
So
East Side Petaluma,
lower middle class neighborhood, you know. And
you'd stand on what street corner?
It wasn't a corner. I'd just stand in front of my house.
Wow, not even on a corner.
No, every 10 minutes a car would come by, and I'd scream and yell and hold the flowers out and just beg people to stop.
Because I'll see people on Caulfield, you know, they'll be hanging out in a corner, a busy corner. That's pretty common. You're literally just
yeah. My mom's not gonna let me go to the corner, right? So like, because poly class hadn't happened yet. But polyclass kind of changed the world when it came to kidnappings and stuff and child. But she definitely wasn't going to let me go to a corner. She's like, yeah, sure, cut my flowers and sell them. Good luck with that.
Yeah. So what'd you sell them for?
Like $1 or $2, something like that. Enough to buy, because you could buy 4 packs of baseball cards for $1, and that's what I was going after. I wanted the baseball cards with the one piece of gum in there.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the beginning. And Garbage Patch Kids, remember those? Those were fun too.
So what'd you learn from that job?
You know, that was my first like moment of like entrepreneurism, right? It was like that you can take your mom's flowers and you can stand on the corner and put this effort in, you could sell them, and that you can make money doing that. And that really, I would say, was the gestation of how I've operated my whole life in an entrepreneurial state.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So your third moment, your life and money, third story.
Third story that was a more recent story. Unfortunately, my dad passed from Parkinson's a year and a half ago, and I was his caretaker for most of the tail end of his sickness. And I fortunate to really spend a lot of meaningful time with him before he passed, and I got to reconnect with him in a different way that I'm really grateful for, but it was also a really painful part of time in life. And there was this point where I'd sold his house. He had this beautiful house. He'd worked his whole life on the bay in Point Richmond. And he separated with his wife, and then he was in the final months of his sickness. And I had to step in and sell the house and all that jazz. And that was not fun. But he had this huge bank account after we sold that house. And here's my dad, who has dementia at that point from the Parkinson, or the type of Parkinson's he had and whatnot. And he's going downhill, and he looks at me one day. And the thing about dementia is, like, most of the time it's just scrambled, right? And you're like, I think I know what my dad's like. Today's a rocket man. Today he's a sailor. Like, you're kind of figuring it out. But every once in a while, there's just like these statements they'll make that are just poignant and clear and thoughtful. And like, where'd that come out of that dude? He looks at me and says, you know, D, what's a real shame? Here my body's falling apart, and it's obviously a one-way ticket, and I have a bank account full of money that I can't really do anything with. And it gave me that moment of like, wow, like we can work our whole life and save all this money up and then be faced with the mortality that all of us have. And right. So that taught me and reaffirmed to me the importance of having lots of mini retirements through life, right? Doing things you want to do that create those moments with that money, because you don't get to take it with you, man. Like, you just don't. And I think we traditionally think about, hey, I'm going to work really hard, save all this money, and then I'm going to golf or do whatever for my retirement. And I just subscribe that that's not the way. I think the way is to create many retirements throughout your career. That's the best you can. Now it's hard with kids and family and bills and all that.
You can't YOLO everything, right? I mean, you can't just...
It's just balance, right?
You got to find that balance. You can't... You have to have some moments of joy. You have to still have some no's too. And but too many no's, and you end up with, too much money and not enough life.
That's right. And then too many yeses, you end up with no money,
yeah,
and still working into your 80s. So it's this balance. So when we're working with clients, that's what we try to strike, is that even balance of like, how do we enjoy today, but also prepare for tomorrow?
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So you had your original story around jewelry discount. What is that all about?
Okay. So my life and money. So I wouldn't say I felt like I was raised really well. I love my parents, and I think they did a good job.
Right.
But I think it's really easy now with the internet to kind of feel like you have this access to information, and everybody, I think, is a little bit more wise now than even 10, 15, 20 years ago.
But are they wise, or they just know more? Because there's a difference.
We'll go there in another episode. We're lining up all kinds of episodes here. But I just, at least for me personally, when I was growing up and I was in high school, I didn't feel savvy. I didn't feel confident in talking and dealing with money. And so my story is me in high school, had a girlfriend and trying to impress her.
Do we have a picture of this?
We do. There he was. Look at him.
Where's the girlfriend?
I didn't get her permission. I didn't want to sell her out. I didn't want to just put her on blast in there, but I have many great photos of the two of us. But that guy right there, that guy's not so savvy with money.
That guy's a BFD, man.
That guy's ready to go to that concert. That was a great concert. I decide that for our anniversary or whatever it was, I'm going to get her some jewelry. I've never bought jewelry in my life. And so I go to a shopping center in Petaluma on the west side of town. I'll let you guess which one. And there's a jewelry store in there. And I walk in terrified, and I have no clue what I'm doing. And they have a bunch of jewelry. And I'm like, I don't know. And I tell the gal straight up, I'm like, I don't know what to get. She goes, okay, well, how about this Tanzanite necklace? And I'm like, okay,
Tanzanite. Everyone needs some Tanzanite.
Sweet. That sounds exotic. It's got a Z in it, right? And so she says, you're in luck. This Tanzanite necklace, which is regularly $200, is actually 60% off. And I'm ecstatic. I'm like, whoa, the value. This is awesome. I thought I was going to, because I literally had $200 in my hand. I thought I was going to have to spend it all. So she takes out this like comically large calculator with massive buttons. And that was my first indication that maybe we're not dealing with like the mathiest clerk here. And she goes, 200 X 0.6, enter. She goes, okay, It's $120. And I go, sweet. Take the necklace, I get in the car, I'm driving home. And then as I'm driving home, I start redoing like the 5th grade math of how percentages work. 60% off is 0.6 equals, and then you subtract that from the original, and then that is what you pay. So I paid $40 more than I was supposed to because she really gave me 40% off instead of 60% off.
Ouch.
That $40 chaps me to this day as every time I drive by that shopping center and I think about that $40 they took from me, and I think about that $40 that I didn't have to pay. And Daren, if I put that $40 in any number of stocks,
NVIDIA,
or
NVIDIA,
it's not investing advice. Just think about
it's definitely not advice.
Think about what it could be, right? It's just. I mean, in the end of the day, it's $40, but it's just that was my first indication that, kind of like you said, you need to be on your toes with this stuff. You need to watch this stuff. And then I was probably a little too scared to say to her, hey, I think you did that math wrong, and what she might respond with. And learning to get that confidence up and be able to say, you know what, I'm so sorry. Could I ask you to do that again? Could we write this out together? Because the difference ends up being a pretty big margin for me. So I still think about that one.
You know, that's such a great example of I would call a money origin story. Like, we develop our psychology as young people, and it's our money origin. And that story, which is $40, which you're going to spend that today on lunch, by the way, and the sad to say, or dinner tonight at McDonald's or wherever else. But that money origin story, we carry through us our entire lives. And so a lot of working as a financial advisor is like, how do I unwind these money origin stories that are serving me or not serving me? Some of them do, some of them don't. But so important in our life. So the other story you wanted to talk about was Wells Fargo, right? Or can we even say that? I don't think we can say that.
I think
bank.
We can.
We can.
I think we can.
Okay. I don't know.
I mean, it's this. What I'm about to talk to is these are all facts. So I think we can.
We'll see.
What do you think?
Probably go ahead and just say a bank. I'd say a large bank to be safe.
I checked it this morning. It's fully convicted and fully they
then
admitted to it.
If they admitted to it, I'd say go with it.
All right. So you're talking about money origin story, and I also have a photo of myself and my dad in front of an aircraft carrier, so we can pull that up.
Did you do that on purpose?
No, I really didn't, actually.
Like, what's the chance that? Like,
there's me and my dad, Bruce. And I love my dad. And part of my money origin story, my life and money, is my dad got me a checking account when I was a kid, and it was with Wells Fargo. And he looked at me and said, you can trust Wells Fargo. And I got my own little card, and it had the little stagecoach on there, and he handed it to me. And I thought about that statement that he said to me every single time I touched that card. And I felt like I was doing business with someone that I could trust, and I liked this brand, and I liked the little stagecoach, and like it was just like I was in, like, this is a good brand for me, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not hard to find this information anywhere, but they eventually accrued many billions of dollars of fines from the SEC and others for much fraudulent activity in the 2018s to 2020s. So look that up. So at about that time, I said to myself again, hey, maybe it's time to re-examine this statement from your dad that you've been holding on to for so long. And I no longer bank there anymore. So this isn't necessarily...
Do you still feel bitter about it when you drive by?
That one doesn't get me.
Yeah, okay.
That one doesn't get me. But it's not necessarily a statement on that particular bank. It's more just to say, if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, the traits that are passed down to you from your parents should be examined down the road. And sometimes you're going to examine them and go, you know what, they were absolutely right. But you shouldn't necessarily hang on to something just because my dad told me this when I was 6. And some people will do that. Some people will choose certain institutions or choose certain people because we've just always done it that way. And I would submit that maybe you should consider, looking at it closely.
I think that's a fair point. And I think that probably tied into partially why we reconnected after high school years and years later with the Dave Ramsey program.
So this is a great story. So this is how I ended up in this chair today, and it's because of a radio show. So I'm working at the radio station in Santa Rosa, and I have a very good friend. His name is Travis Sirocco. I'm working on the DJ side. He's working in sales. And he's all excited because our news station has added the Dave Ramsey show. He's like, dude, it's the Dave Ramsey show. I can't, oh, it's so great. It's on the station now. I can't, oh, it's going to be amazing. And I'm like, I've never heard of this person in my life. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Stop talking. You're loud. Mm-hmm. and I, in general, I don't like when people tell me about the new person that you're supposed to care about. Oh, you got to be into this guy now. He's the best. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's the guy I don't need to be into, right? But I happen to start listening to the show, and the show is all about eliminating debt. It's a very grounded approach. Some people like him, some people don't. There's reasons and there's not. But I started listening to the show, and some of the values really started vibing with me. And so he, on the show, has advisors that he refers to that are in his network of smart vestors, he calls it. So you can go find your Smart Vestor Pro, just put in your zip code. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm pull up our 3 options, and I'm like, it's Daren from high school. Right? So he's on my 3 suggested. And so I said, well, clearly I'm going to at least call him, right? And so we reconnected that way. And before I knew it, somehow I'm your director of marketing for Sonoma Wealth Advisors. So that story is just, I was being proactive about our money, my family's money, my wife and I's. And I was just trying to make sure that we were, set up with someone who were trying to work on this stuff. And the end result of that was a job and a new career. And so that's just to say, if you're finding yourself without opportunities, sometimes you can try things that have nothing to do with something else. But if you just kind of pursue it and go after it, it could turn into something that you're not expecting.
Have you read Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights?
Yeah.
For those who haven't read it, it's an amazing book. But he talks about a thing in there called green lights, right? And his book's kind of this description of this existence of stumbling into success, I think, in some ways, right? And I love that concept because green lights we all have in our life. And I would say your experience with Ramsey, us meeting, you becoming the marketing director, that's a green light. Yeah. Right? Just like whatever it is that you want to point to, higher power, whatever, it just kind of moves into motion. And we believe in that concept so much so that we actually have one of our listed values as a company called We Pursue Green Lights, right? We pursue those things that are easy, not because they're easy, they don't demand a lot from us, but that they're easy because they just work. And I tend to believe whenever we force things in life, whether it's money, anything else, things don't work. When they just happen, that's the opportunity.
So let's talk about a little bit more about this show now that you know a little bit more about us, about your hosts. So tagline for this show is financial confidence for your hip pocket. What does that mean? The end of this show, if you listen to the show start to finish as we do it, the end of the show is not a 10-week course that gives you a fake diploma and you, congratulations, get a PDF which says you're qualified to deal with money. The end of the show is not selling you our book. It's not anything other than trying to give you some information so that when you're in the moment to make a decision, and that's where so many of your financial decisions are made, is in the moment. Should I buy the tickets? Is this a good price? Does this person feel shady to me? You find yourself in the moment and maybe you don't have that financial confidence because you don't feel like you've learned enough. Our hope is that this show maybe will give you a nugget or two so that when you're in the moment out of your hip pocket, you have something you feel you can use. And Daren, I've got 5 rules for this show. I don't know if you know these rules or not yet, but I have them.
I don't have those listed rules.
These are my 5 rules for the show. These are going to give you a guideline. These are our parameters for our approach. 1, opinions are opinions. So what we talk about on this show in subsequent episodes is our opinion. It's based on our experience. It's based on our education, but it is just an opinion. There are a lot of different ways to approach finances in a financial situation. At no point is this show anything other than for educational purposes based on our experiences. Second, numbers are numbers. So sometimes we may be having big multi-million-dollar conversations, tossing around, well, this is $6 million and the government paid $2 billion for that. And other times it'll be lower level. $10 purchase, so how you can save $5. It's just numbers. Try and detach the emotion from some of this, and there's no judgment from us as far as if you're driving a $2,000 car, you mean just as much to me as someone who's driving a $2 million car. So numbers are just numbers. Third rule, no politics. Very easy in a money show to make it scheduled and angled from a particular political view. The conversation can go there very fast, and that's not the goal of this show.
And I'm going to caveat that a lot of money has to do with politics. So what we try to do is we will bring it up from time to time, but we'll try to stay very even balanced with it. And it is something to address, especially because we're in an election year when we're recording this.
Yes.
And election years tend to create a lot of nerves around money. And we'll talk about how to avoid some of those traps.
So it's not can you even say nonpartisan anymore? I don't know if you're allowed to.
I don't know if there's such a thing anymore, but yeah.
Politics intersects with the show, but it is not a political show.
Yep.
3 more rules. Stay grounded. So Daren is a qualified financial professional. Sometimes we'll be talking about significant amounts of money, but we also understand that 40% of America can't afford a $1,000 emergency. So this show is for all levels of people, wherever they're at in their wealth journey. 2 more. Always learning. ChatGPT isn't the only one who's a learning model, Daren. We are always learning. So the information that we have, can change. By episode 100, we may have a different viewpoint on something than we have today based on new information. And finally, I will tell you when I'm selling. So we are here at the office, Sonoma Wealth Advisors. We are a wealth management firm. But this is not the show where we spend an episode telling you how great whole life is. And by the way, we sell whole life. If we're selling our services,
which we don't, and which we disagree with, but okay.
If we're talking about our firm and we're telling you about our services, we'll let you know. Everything else is our opinion for educational.
We might actually
only.
At some point. That's a great idea for another episode. Is to talk about those TikTok dancers that tell you why you should save for retirement and whole life, and break that down why that's probably not a great idea.
Thank you so much for checking out episode 0, for meeting myself, Dano, and Daren, and we look forward to you joining us along the way.
This content was produced by Fermata Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. DBA, Sonoma Wealth Advisors. The opinions expressed by Fermata Advisors, LLC on this show are their own. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Viewers and listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.